Did you know that more than half of marriages fail, and the failure rate of couples that are not married is even higher? If you want to bring back the magic in your relationship, visit our website, perfectingrelationships.com, and order my book. It will help. Well, I just saw a need that people needed to have in their lives because relationships are so difficult to deal with. And I thought that if I could find a couple of different rules that could apply to that maybe I could help some people. The whole purpose of the book is to be able to teach you some simple rules in the relationships that will bring your relationship back to what it was in the beginning, when all the passion was there, all the love was there, and the desire for each other, and time that you wanted to spend with each other. What probably led me to writing the book was a divorce, and just having difficulties in life and in relationships, and trying to figure out maybe there was a better way to do them, and it kind of put me on a quest to learn. Once I learned the particular cause and effect that helps relationships or trashes relationships, I purposely wrote the book with the idea of helping people. What makes you go through the process of trying to figure out how it went is all the time it took to get to the divorce. All those years of difficulty where you just can't make things work. And then all of a sudden the divorce happens. So you figure out, well, what happened from the beginning when it was so good until I'm ready for a divorce? And that's what motivated me. When I started to write the book, I quickly found out that there was more than just one type of relationship that we're dealing with. And really the rules and regulations I put in there, which are very simple, there's only 3, apply to all 4 relationships. And there are 4 types. There's a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, I call it, which is considered 1. There is a friendship type of relationship. There's business relationships, and there are also family relationships. I think I mentioned in the very first chapter that there's a common denominator in all relationships, that if you look at them in the beginning stages, they're wonderful. 2 people meet each other, they're crazy about each other, they look forward to seeing each other. All they do is think about each other during the day. All they do is talk to their friends about that significant other. And then 6 months down the road, after you've established a relationship, meaning you want to stab each other, you're trying to something happened between the beginning and the end. That's the common denominator, or the common thread that I tried to find. Gravity is something that affects everybody, and what I tried to explain in that chapter, and use an analogy, that gravity affects us whether you believe in it or not. And my idea is that these rules that we talk about, which are biblically based, they affect you whether you believe in them or not. If you do them correctly, there'll be a positive result. If you don't do them correctly, there's a negative result. And gravity is the same way. You can jump off of a building and say, I don't believe in gravity, until you hit the ground. And then, if you live, maybe you'll believe in gravity after that. What the chapter of bliss is about is the beginning relationship, what it is that initiates it. Of course, there's chemistry involved, and people have good chemistry, and they get together, and the relationship kicks off, and that's what I call the bliss stage. But it's how you react in that relationship afterwards that gets you out of the bliss and into the aggravation portion of the relationship. I call it agitation termination because it's exactly that. What happens is you have a relationship for 4 months, 6 months, depending upon the individuals and how badly they abuse the rules of relationships. So it might take 2 months, it might take 6 months, it might take 2 years. But the bottom line is, if they keep doing the wrong things, at that point in time, the agitation builds to a point where people can't handle it anymore, and they think it's easier to get out of the relationship than it is to fix it. I don't think you have to give up anything to make a relationship work. You just need to learn what the rules are and then apply the rules. And the rules are very simple. We go on a day-to-day basis, and people just naturally don't do what's correct. And I'll give you a quick example. I played professional baseball for a few years, and there were people that played that I played with that were just naturals. On a scale of 1 to 100, their natural ability was 99. Mine might have been 78. Pete Rose was probably a 50, okay? And what happens is you have to go beyond that natural ability. You have to find out what the nuts and bolts are that make things work. And once you find them, they're easy to apply. Talebearing is it's mentioned 6 times in the Old Testament, okay, in Proverbs. 4 of the times it's one word that's spelled completely different than it is the other 2 times. And of the 4 times it's mentioned, the word is described as an idle gossip. And I'll give you an example. We're sitting in the mall and person really heavy walks by, and I say to you, or you say to me, wow, that person is really heavy. That's idle gossip. That's not talebearing. What talebearing is that when you go home and your wife gets on your case about something you did wrong and just really rips you a good one, and it upsets you, it hurts your feelings because maybe you think that you didn't do those things. And instead of discussing it with her and getting the problem solved with her, you go and have a beer with me and dump on me for 20 minutes or an hour about all the things that she said that were wrong. That's talebearing. And the definition, by the way, in Hebrew is to get little rocks and get a great big rock and roll over them and just kind of crush the little rocks into dust. It's a very abusive word. And big difference, big difference. Have you ever had your feelings hurt by the person you love? And then as soon as you had your feelings hurt, the first thing you did was go out and talk to a friend about what that person did to you? Well, if that's what you did, that's the worst thing you can do in a relationship. And if you continually do that in a relationship, your relationship is doomed for failure. Proverbs 18, I think is 18:8. It says the words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. And if you research the word belly, it means your spirit. Okay? So let me repeat. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down to the innermost parts of the belly. So when you talebear, it isn't getting it off your chest. It's really going inside of you. And the question is, what's going inside of you? In Proverbs, what it says in chapter 20-ish, that where the wood ceaseth, the fire goes out. Or where there's no wood, the fire goes out. Where there's no talebearing, the strife ceaseth. So there's a relationship. When you talebear, it creates strife inside of you. And the simple definition of strife is animosity, contentious spirit towards each other, argumentative, being nasty to each other. So when you talebear, it goes right inside of you and creates this strife. And it's only the talebearing that does it. Talk about good things. If you have a difficult time because your wife hurt your feelings about something, you need to step back, take a few minutes, decide, well, maybe she's right, maybe she's not. Sit on it. Don't get emotional. Go dump on your friends about it. Just be quiet about it. Be still. Maybe wait a day. You can do that. Then go talk to your wife about it, not your friends. Because what happens is you go and you talebear and you create strife. Now what happens is you got all this strife inside you. How do you get rid of it? That's another problem. And then it builds and it builds and it builds to the point where you're just a very angry person all the time. You have nothing good to say about anybody because you're so full of strife. Strife, according to Webster's dictionary, is basically anger, contentiousness, being mad with somebody, aggravated, that kind of feeling. And you know what I'm talking about when you're just totally frustrated with somebody. That's strife. The only way to get rid of strife is through forgiveness. If you can't forgive somebody for what they did to you, then you can't get rid of the strife that's inside of you. So, I mean, it's very simple. You've got to forgive to get rid of the strife, and it's very important to get rid of the strife. And I'll tell you something scriptural about that. You know, God says that He can't forgive you unless you forgive those who sin against you. So if you can't forgive them, boy, you're in deep trouble. And the only way you can get rid of strife is through forgiveness. Well, there's two ways you get rid of strife. One of them is not to ever create it, okay? And that's simply by not talebearing. So, you know, your old grandmother used to say, honey, if you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say anything. That's how you don't create strife. And the other is through forgiveness. In other words, when strife is there and you've created it because you've gone out and jawed somebody else about what somebody else did that hurt your feelings, the only way to get rid of that is to go to that person and tell them you're sorry, you shouldn't have done that. Or if you can't do that, at least get rid of it on yourself. You know, so then we'll say, you know what, I forgive myself for doing that. I'm not going to do it anymore. And you need to that's the only way to get rid of strife. hurt feelings are definitely the gateway to tailbearing. If you can learn how to, when you get your feelings hurt, it's inevitable in a relationship to not have your feelings hurt, because you're going to do something that's going to hurt somebody else's feelings or vice versa. You're going to get your feelings hurt. It's how you handle that. That if you don't tailbear, then you can keep that strife out of you. And let me tell you a little secret. With that strife out of you, that love that's inside of you for that other person kind of shines, man. But when you get a bunch of strife inside there, it just buries it and you can't even see it. So if you don't get rid of the strife, you know, that love will never come out like it was in the beginning. You've got to stop tailbearing. When you get your feelings hurt, and it's going to happen, handle it correctly. Go to that person that hurt your feelings and talk to them and get it resolved. And when you do that, you don't create strife, and the strife doesn't exist. When there's no strife, all that love that's inside of you for that person, whether it's a friend or a significant other, will shine through. If you've got a bunch of strife in you because you've been talking and jawing, it's not going to shine through, and you're going to be angry all the time. The confrontations can come in a lot of different ways. It's how you handle the confrontation that's important. And there are confrontations between two people, for example, between like you and me as a friend. If you did something to hurt my feelings, you know, if I don't get excited, don't get emotional, and think about it a little bit, I may come up with the answer on my own, what it is that I did that I thought would hurt my feelings, but really didn't. I mean, it was my fault. I mean, I shouldn't have done what I did that made you react like you did, and it's gone. But the point here is I didn't go tell somebody about it, and there's no strife created, and it goes away. It kind of just disappears. The next day you'll be thinking to yourself, what was I mad at Jim about? And you can't remember. But if you go tailbear about that incident to somebody, I promise you, you'll remember. You'll be able to regurgitate it with a little computer chip. It'll come up every single day until you do get rid of it correctly. There's only one way to do a confrontation. That's to sit down with somebody after the emotions are gone. And, you know, sometimes it's your fault that the hurt happened. Sometimes it's their fault. Sometimes it's both parties' fault. And what's so important at that confrontation meeting is that when you make the other person aware of it, and this is a person that cares for you, when you come to somebody with a legitimate question about why they did what they did, I mean, if they felt like they hurt you, more than likely, if they're going to ask you after, would you please forgive me? I didn't mean to do that. And of course, you're quick to say yes, and then the confrontation's over with. So the point of confrontation is get to a point where you can forgive each other and move on. I think what the book offers is to teach people how to fix their relationships if they're out of whack, if they're in trouble with their relationships, to be able to fix them. And the rules to do that are very simple, but you just need to know what the rules are. It's the cause and effect thing I mentioned in the introduction of the book. If you don't know the cause, you can't figure out the effect. My father used to tell me, if you don't know the problem, you can't solve the problem. So you find out what the rules are so that you can begin to change your life about how you react and talk to each other, primarily the tail-bearing thing, so that you can prevent strife from taking over your life. You ever go down the road and see a guy go nuts on a car with road rage? That's strife at its best. That's where it comes from. I mean, this is a guy that just runs his mouth all the time and doesn't even realize it. Doesn't even realize it. The book is primarily for anybody that wants to become more successful in life. And what to me, the meaning of successful in life is to be able to have your relationships flourish. In other words, whether it's a husband and wife relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, a child relationship with parents. I mean, parents do the same thing with children. They can tailbear and create strife in their kids, and their kids are pretty smart. You don't realize it, but they know these things. And you can ruin a relationship with a child. So the purpose of the book is to help people improve their relationships and do it in a very simple fashion. They just don't know what to do. The book has a chapter where there's some good advice given out by me, and it's biblically based. One of them is in Proverbs. It says that you'll be fed well by the fruit of your mouth. So if you learn to speak well about circumstances and things, you'll be fed well. And that's very important. The other one is, and especially in confrontations, it says that a soft answer turns away wrath. That works everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's in business, with a child, with a friend, a significant other. If there's a confrontation involved, a soft answer always turns away wrath. If you raise your voice, they're going to raise their voice, and then all of a sudden you're both yelling and screaming and the emotions run wild. So a soft answer turns away wrath. Have you ever had your feelings hurt by a spouse, a significant other, your boyfriend or girlfriend? And then the first thing you did after they hurt your feelings is you went and told a friend of yours about what that person just had done. This is the worst thing you can do in a relationship. It's called tale bearing, and it's the beginning of the end of the relationship if you continue to do this.